Hello, everyone. I am Rajveer Kaur, and we are again, bringing you a very, very interesting interview session with one of our favorite photographers, who is also India's one of the finest travel and lifestyle photographers, and his name is Pankaj Anand. He's one of the coolest global Punjabis, I can say, and I've worked with. Pankaj, welcome to another show of the Project Punjab. And before we begin, if you can just tell us what your roots are, how do you connect to Punjab?
So thank you, Rajveer, for having me over. It's a privilege to be on this talk. I was born into a Punjabi family in Mumbai and raised amongst all the kinds of hybrid cultures that we find in the city of Mumbai. My grandmother, she comes from Lahore. That's my mother's side. My father's side happens to be rooted in Rawalpindi. They all moved over the period of time after the division of Punjab to Ludhiana, then some to Amritsar, Delhi, and eventually, by the time it was the time for my generation, we were all in Mumbai.
Oh, wow. And how many times have you been to Punjab? Have you been to Punjab? That should be my first question.
Yeah, that's the drawback of being brought up into the so-called maximum city of our country. Very few times, to be honest. Maybe just twice or thrice, and it was all for work. But then I did manage to squeeze in some personal time to go and visit the Great Golden Temple and have some time to myself in peace over there.
Right. So you've only been to other parts of Punjab?
I've been to Chandigarh, Amritsar, and just Chandigarh and Amritsar so far. I mean, we had to explore the routes to the fullest as I can say. I mean, yeah.
Right. So do you speak Punjabi at home?
At some point in future, yeah.
I didn't get that last part, Pankaj.
Perhaps with you in future at some point. Why not?
Absolutely. When we go for our next leg of shoot for the Project Punjab, maybe then we can.
Definitely.
Yeah. And, do you speak Punjabi at home?
No, I've heard a lot of Punjabi around in the family and relatives, with my relatives. But yes, me per se, with my family, nuclear family, with my father, not really. I mean, we try a little bit if there are some strangers around us and we want to speak something which we don't want others to know about, but that completely fails as an attempt, to be honest.
Right. And what I'm sure
Punjabi madi moti, mainu madi moti Punjabi aandi hai.
Very good, very good. That's enough, I guess. So now I'm sure every Punjabi, irrespective of whether you speak the language or not, but a Punjabi is a Punjabi. You kind of wear that emotion. So what is Punjabiyat to you?
What's that?
What is Punjabiyat to you?
Punjabiyat is what I can say is like a tabiyat. It's like the nature of one person. I mean that happens to be with your upbringing. It happens to be with your the way it happens to be genetically coming into you in that sense. Like no matter whoever Punjabi you meet around, you'll always find this typical traits of Punjabi to be out there. Very few introverts that I've met in a Punjabi culture. Always very warm. Always looking forward to do something or the other. Never really, you can't really find a Punjabi at one point at anywhere.
Yeah, so large-heartedness and the vibrancy, the color,
absolutely. I mean, no matter how cliche it sounds, no matter how run of the mill this would be, but yes, of course, that stands true for all of us in Punjabi. Yes, that's Punjabi for sure.
Amazing. I like the way you said that Punjabiyat is actually like tabiyat.
Yes, of course.
It's very, yeah. I think next time I'm going to use that line for sure, and I'll give you credits. But you have done excellent job. I have worked with you personally during my previous work assignments. When I was working with Taj Lands, and that's how I know you. How did photography happen to you? How did you become a photographer?
Fluke. That's again. If I really have to put into the context, that's again the Punjabiyat in me that let me be myself, and with my father, the relation that we shared, I was pursuing my education in my higher school studies and so on and so forth, wherein there was a clear conversation between me and my father. He said, the education back in the era when he was studying was very different. The education now in today's generation is absolutely different. So he should be no one to take command of that and say that, you should do this, become an engineer or so-called or whatever. Like my eldest brother, being in the family of Punjabis, always was so influenced by the automobiles. I mean, he became an automobile engineer subsequently in his life. For me, it was still quite open. So he said, no matter what, my son, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, if you happen to be in any kind of struggle, don't come back to me ever saying that, Papaji, you told me to do this. That's why I'm suffering today. No. And you take your own call and see what you're going to do it and face it for yourself. Like, why not? Sure. So I kept figuring it out. I kept fiddling, and then happened to be my academics in BFA Applied Arts with photography as majors. That was like 4-year rigorous degree course from Mumbai University. And yeah, I mean, that really took off with photography for me, actually. I mean, I did try everything else around. My curriculum had the expanse of looking over the horizon for me in different fields like typography, exhibition display, or illustration. I really liked illustration, I must say. But it was photography as a calling eventually, yeah. And it was absolutely a matter of trial and error. I never really could, so to say, couldn't confine myself in one particular field and say that this is me or that is me. I mean, unless I wouldn't try it, I wouldn't know it. I always followed that part. I always followed that part because obviously that came in from my father. He said, like, you have to do it to know it. So, I mean, I tried. I was a science student eventually, which then eventually I moved on to pick up arts later in my career.
So do you think photography came naturally to you? Although like you tried many different things, but was it easy for you? Was it natural to you? Was it organic? How did it happen?
Yes, I mean, if you have to call organic in certain sense, yes, it was. But to be frank, I did try a lot of other things before like figuring out and zeroing down to photography. I mean, for me, I was still very free flowing initially. So I tried my hands with different subjects, whatever came in front of me. And then when I figured, photography, I was typical liberal, so to say. So it was difficult to make a decision for myself. So I tried a lot of things, and then only after trying, yeah. So only after trying like a million things, I realized, okay, this is what it is. That this is what I want to do.
Brilliant.
But till date,
and how did you?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so till date, to be honest, in the field of photography, even today, after over a period of over 10 years of me practicing photography professionally, I am still not in a position to say what kind of photographer I am. I mean, I still shoot whatever comes my way, and I still enjoy every part of it and every genre of it properly.
That's the beauty of what you're doing, right? You can do anything. You don't have to really restrict yourself or limit yourself to one particular,
well, it's worked for me so far. Yeah.
And how did you bag your first?
Sorry.
How did you bag your first assignment?
Fluke again. There are a lot of answers that is going to come from me as fluke because I kept trying. For me, everything was like, logic. I kept trying, and then eventually some part of luck worked out. So that luck factor gave me the assignment, I must say. I was participating in an inter-college competition where I had to participate in a photography competition, wherein I came across the organizers and they said, we're looking for a photographer for our event because our so-called photographer is not shown up. So I said, okay, great. I mean, do you mind if I go out and take some pictures for you as well? And I'm like, yeah, sure, you're a participant, but you still can go out and do what you want to do. And
so it's a matter of right time, right place.
Yes, of course, yes, yeah. So that really gave me like my first chance professionally. Yeah, that's what I can say. Yeah.
But you are into travel. Yeah. Sorry, no, go ahead.
By the time I was finishing my academics, I mean, I was already running a parallel life with hopping around in different cities and executing different assignments, and then I would rush back to college and finish my assignments, and then the parallel life started. In college itself.
So much fun. So
yeah.
So now you were you are into travel as well as lifestyle photography, right? So to speak,
Yes.
at least from a broader perspective. Now,
Yes.
when you say travel photographer, obviously you get to travel a lot, and you worked with some brilliant publications like Condé Nast Traveler to Travel and Leisure. You've worked with all of them. So how has that been so far? And which all countries have you traveled thanks to all these travel assignments that you get?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's been. I must say, I've been extremely fortunate to be associated with some prestigious magazines, especially Condé Nast as a publication has really um, uh, given me some great opportunities. Is all I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really shouldn't be counting the number of countries or the names. I mean, that's just me trying to make it sound like, oh, I've been there and I've been here. But then, yes, of course, there's been quite a few countries.
Top 10 countries, maybe, or top 5, where all you've traveled.
Top five, if I have to name the. Sorry?
Throw some unusual names.
So unusual, I don't know, which you would normally not go to or normally would not have in an itinerary, probably could be Colombia in South America. That was quite a destination for me to go to. Another one that I could think of is South Korea. I've been to the Jeju Islands in South Korea, and that was something. I mean, that was something really unique as a place that I could go to, where we had been to the volcanic tubes underground, which were like say about 50 feet under the ground, and we were literally walking over solid lava over there. It was
Wow.
quite an exciting experience. And another couple of places that I could talk about maybe is Sweden. That was fantastic again. Sweden, I was fortunate enough to go twice. And my first ever
Right.
attempt was to cover one of their festivals called Saint Lucia Festival, and got a chance to stay at the amazing Ice Hotel and witness the Northern Lights over there.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it's been quite some exciting journey all throughout with so many assignments at different locations, and most of them have been with Condé Nast Traveler because I think I was pretty much groomed by them. It's like how we say, like how you have your company kind of defines you of who you are in certain ways.
Right.
For me, it turned out to be quite lucky for me at the start of the career itself. Like right out of college, I was a photo intern with the magazine, and they were generous enough to identify me as their potential photographer in future, and kept me on their radar all the time, and I kept hopping around for them all the time. Yeah.
You've also worked with a lot of lifestyle brands.
Yes, I mean that was a subsequent result of hopping around so much, and then a few brands, so to say, happened, and because you travel so much, there are a lot of hotels that you interact with, and a lot of hotels also happened to me after that.
Yeah.
Now I'm a brand photographer with Marriott International.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so, how do you create awareness about your work? Like, is it purely word of mouth, or are you also like sort of investing in social media platforms, or you're advertising? I don't know. I mean, how do you sort of reach out to your clients, or is it just like because you've created a name for yourself? So,
I mean, I can't really be in a position right now to say that I've made a name for myself. If you want to say it, I'll be happy to know that.
I think you have.
Thank you.
Let's
So,
say.
well, ours is photography has been like a very practical field as such. I mean, you really need to have the kind of portfolio to go out and pitch for yourself to begin with. I mean, nobody's going to just look at your degree and say that, hey, you know what? Oh, you've scored like you're the topper of the university and you seem to be a bright student. Let's hire you or something like that. That's not going to be the case with us.
Right.
With most of the people following the discipline in art or something like that. I mean, if it's a typical client who wants to say that, hey, I want to shoot something, maybe like a speaker or a computer, they'll just ask you to just go, have you ever shot something like this before? Let me have a look at it. I mean, only then you get hired. Otherwise, it's just very difficult. Or else you've got to be really out there to keep meeting people to get that kind of. I mean, spending money on social media only can help you once you have the kind of solid portfolio to display. So for me, that really hasn't worked so far. Social media, whatever you could say, online methods would have so far worked with me because I've had my offline associations, because I've had my offline work in place, because I've had my offline.
Networking, I guess it has a lot
You
to
could
do
say
with
that. You could say that. Yeah. I mean, you have to meet the right art directors. You have to meet the right editors in the of different magazines. You have to meet. You have to meet the right kind of people. I mean, that really gives you the first push, I can say.
How do you keep upgrading your skills? Like, is there any format? Like, how do you do? Like, what do you do?
Teach. The best way to learn for me has been to teach so far. Initially, it was all about assisting photographers and going out and learning from the seniors, but that's not happening off lately. So since the past few years, I've been a guest lecturer at St. Xavier's in Mumbai and some other places as well for photography, and that's really giving me a chance to look at my own work in a different way. When I get instant reviews from students while we're doing the case studies for different kinds of photo shoots and different genres and different skills that I applied back in the day or in the past when I was doing that, and then I get a different opinion from the students when they say that, oh, maybe you could have tried something else or something like that, or some other way. And that's how I've been picking up a lot of insights, and eventually, of course, there's the entire new realm of online education. I mean, you just Google anything and you will find a new tutorial for yourself. That really has been a great source of inspiration to go out and as a photo as a department as a team member in the photo department with Vandana's Traveler. One important thing that I really picked up from that job was to do photo researching, and photo researching had really sort of trained my eye to look and distinguish between a good photo and a not so good photo, and that really virtually I would click images virtually on the internet or find it from different books or something like that. That virtual training of having the appetite to identify images has really helped me pick up the shots when I am doing a job on the field. Like you're really out there in a travel assignment at a different destination where there is everything in front of your eyes. So to identify and distinguish and pick and choose your subjects and the time of light or whatever compositions, that's been a great learning actually. I still continue doing that by scrolling like a million images in a day. I mean, that comes to the point when Instagram comes up with a feed saying that you are up to date. You have seen all the feeds of the day. So yeah, it's kind of that length for me to just go out. Yeah.
Wow. So if not photographer, then what? Did you ever think of that?
Maybe a teacher.
Teacher.
Maybe a teacher. Yeah. I mean, that's the only other thing I've done so far. And my mother was a school teacher all her life. I think that really goes in the genes of figuring out how to help others and explain things to others in some way or the other. So I think maybe I would be a professor or a teacher. In my own college, perhaps. I really enjoy going back there. I have a lot of memories there, probably. Yeah.
And when you're not taking pictures, what do you do? What are your hobbies? I know it's a cliched question, but it's interesting to know what a photographer does.
Very, very difficult. If you're a photographer, you're already experiencing a lot of things, especially in the travel scenario. You're going and learning a little bit of salsa when you're on the job in Colombia, or you're learning a little bit of snowmobile riding when you're in the snow in Sweden, or you're just learning or you're trying a little bit of the hands and getting trained of how to professionally trek if you're in South Africa, or maybe even getting your first experience and learnings of snorkeling or scuba diving when you're photographing something in the Andaman.
Doing all these interesting things that are making us jealous. That's about it.
Yeah, so for me to cultivate or develop or look at some kind of a hobby has always been very varied. I mean, I don't really think I'm stuck on to one thing as such. When I come back home, one thing I've sort of picked up is writing. I try to pen down a lot of experiences that I've come back from, especially the experiences which I've not been able to photograph as such. I mean, they say that picture says 1,000 words and things like that. Of course, yes, it is. a very, very expressive form of medium. But there are certain instances which you just cannot photograph. It just happens at the blink of your eye, and that those have some really big impacts on your mind back when you are over there. So when you come back home, with a lot of memories which you have not photographed. I mean, where do they go? There's no end to it. So I mean, writing has been like a really good source of me to
it's like an outlet. It's like
find and boost my energy for that matter. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. When can we get to?
I would carry 4 books. In fact, at some point, I would carry 4 books with me. And whenever possible, even now I try to do that. First book would be my to-do list book. I am very used to.
Yes, he's my favorite too. Pico Iyer, right?
Sorry.
You said Pico Iyer, right?
No, not the book that I'm saying. The actual to-do list book. Like I would write every single day that book. Like what I need to do. Like a million things. Speaking to a lot of people, shooting a lot of things, different things here and there, or talking to so many people, whatever. So there'll be a book for me to just make a to-do list. Number 2 would be a book for me to write down all my current affairs or wherever the these. Yeah, so I would do that, and then my third book would be doodles because I like illustrations since college days. So I would doodle, and that would be another way of my expressions. I mean, I would spend a lot of times. When you're a freelancer, you're typically a freelancer. You have a lot of free time to yourself, any which ways. So I mean, I would doodle a lot. Eventually, yeah. So all these sort of energy, anxiety, or expressions of from all these experiences would come out, and then if I had the kind of after flushing out so many emotions, then I would pick up a book to read as well. So these were the 4 books which would always come along with me wherever I would go in my backpack.
I think a to-do list is very common with almost all the Librans I know, at least personally, because I have a to-do list for sure. I am constantly. Sorry, what did you say?
I believe we all are struggling to prioritize, isn't it?
True. True. That's a very common Libra trait, I feel.
Yeah.
Can you just share an inspiring story, something that has moved you, which was a part of your, work assignments, like while working, while traveling, doing all these projects, something that really moved you, an interesting, inspiring story.
Well,
which inspired you.
Well, I mean,
I'm sure there have been many.
Yeah, there has been like a. I believe if you have the kind of mindset, one can be very open to see around a lot of inspirational things, especially when you're traveling. Because as a so-called travel photojournalist, as what you wear a hat of like out there, you're meeting a lot of people and you're looking at a lot of things around you. Every travel to me or every job has been really, really inspiring in certain ways or the other. Some I've come back home with a lot of frustration as well, but most of them have been like a memorable one. One of them I could talk about is a gentleman who I had met in Sikkim in the Northeast, and he'd been running a homestay over there for quite a few years, and extremely well-read man, very fluent with quite a few different languages, with a good command of what he would do, and we stayed with him for a few days, and that's how I got to interact with him with quite a few nights and at length. That's when I realized that he not just survived the economic crisis of those regions because they always felt secluded because of whatever the political pressure or whatever they were dealing with. But he still survived by making his own home as a homestay, taking charge of the entire village, making awareness. He created awareness for all the elders in the village around and made their homes also, converted them also at home, into homestays, and sort of generated like a sort of income for the entire community around there. To a certain extent that he even could fund his daughter to go out and study at Gangtok and then move her to Delhi for further education. It was quite a moving story for me to see him be in front of my eyes, having to deal with daily hardships almost every single day. The most moving part for me at that point was to realize that his other daughter was an adopted daughter. whose parents passed away for some reason which I didn't know then. And I realized it only towards the end of our stay that all this while that she was being so kind and she's been so chirpy, happy all around, that she knew about the fact that she's an adopted daughter. She had a picture of her mother along with her all the time. And it was quite a conversation where I just happened to ask her, "Oh, do you miss your mom?" Because even I miss my mom a lot. She passed away when I was in school myself. So, I mean, I just happened to ask this question, and she said that, I mean, yeah, I do miss my mom, but God gave me another mother, and that really was like one simple statement made so much meaning to me at that point in that conversation. Like, wow. I mean, yes, if you want to find inspiration, you can find inspiration from everybody who walk around and live with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're like normal people, nothing to be special about, but what they do every day in their life is extremely special, I would say.
I think normal people are special.
Yeah, being normal, I believe, is the thing to be. I believe I don't need to be. You don't need to be figuring
don't know
out.
what they're doing. They're actually doing. They're making the difference in their own beautiful, unique ways.
Yes, absolutely.
What is normal? I think nobody's normal.
In some way or the other, I believe, very subjective. For many people, normal would be something else, depending on who you are, where you are, what do you do.
Yeah.
As long as you're comfortable under your own skin of wherever you are.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You've also done a brilliant project with Nokia. Can you tell us more about it?
Well, Nokia was again a subsequent result of me being in my so-called free flow attempts with my camera.
Right.
There was a point where I mean, it's just I would say I have this compulsive shooting disorder. If I am looking at something, I want to photograph that. If I'm interested in something, I would want to photograph that. It's just like it's a byproduct of your lifestyle after you.
I'm aware of it. In fact, if you remember when we were shooting hands and you were in the room, you had asked me to remove the curtain because you were trying to fix the camera, that you were trying to fix the light and everything. And I was just moving the curtain and you took that picture and you took your own sweet time to give me that picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a black hole for a lot of photos with me. I mean, there's so many of them. Yeah. Apologies for sending you the photos so late, but finally I did. So yes, so that was like my attempt. Whenever I would find some pictures, I would keep posting, and I would, especially social media platforms that really have been evolved these days, Facebook or Instagram or whatever you want to choose. That really got the eye of a few people around who saw me taking pictures with not just the bigger professional equipments, but also with the phone camera that I would have in my hand on daily life, regular daily basis. And that's when it happened that I got this opportunity again. It was a good amalgamation of my travel profile of hopping around and having this portfolio to back in with what I do, and then the skill what I was trying to put into my phone as well. So Nokia had this one promotional advertorial feature coming up with Condé Nast Traveler, where they collaborated together as a brand collaboration, and then they asked me as one of their Condé Nast Traveler photographer to go out and do some pictures on phone to make it more relatable and relevant to the people out there, because we all have our phone cameras everywhere with all of us all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of making good use of the equipment.
Right.
So that really was the part of the assignment where I had to just explore explore the equipment with just something by the phone camera. And that really was a fun assignment. I had to go around all over Mumbai, which never really happened to me otherwise, because I've shot different cities, and it's funny when you come back home, you don't feel like shooting, and you tend to just oversee a lot of things. But that assignment took me around in different corners of the city, especially during the late hours in the night to check the night mode features of the camera as well. So I went out to quite a few places and exploring landscapes in Mumbai and different places, food, architecture, landscapes, and other things like that. Yeah, that was a fun job again.
Yeah, that must have been really, really, I think, like you said, you were always traveling, you're moving around in other cities, but then when you come back home, you don't want to really go out there and, capture what's there for you. This must have been extremely be fun to explore your own city.
Yes, and only then I realized one particular conversation which I was with a very senior and amazing photographer, travel photographer, Michael Turek. He once told me that you don't need to travel to become a travel photographer. Technically, if you have to really become a travel photographer, your home could be somebody else's destination.
That's
So
so
might as
true.
well go out and shoot your own city very well, and there you go. You have a travel portfolio.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So when you're taking pictures, when you're going for all these assignments, what are the essentials that you keep in mind while shooting?
First and foremost, and some rule that I always try to keep in mind is the brief, the job brief. Nothing can override that. That's the first and foremost important essential that I always try to remind myself and revise and keep a tap on of where am I going for what. Very very essential for me. It's very easy for one to get distracted when you go out there. There is a million different kinds of visuals that you look around, and you experience so many other things which you would normally not experience in your daily life. So that destination can take you off track very easily. So the job brief is one of the most important essential parts that I always keep in mind. And of course, uh, uh, it's always to figure out how you want to make your way around. I mean, not anyone and everyone is comfortable with being photographed or trying to keep your calm is always try to keep a smile on your face. You don't need to be worrying about knowing the language of that particular country. If you're somebody hanging a camera over your neck, wearing a cap, uh, wearing a smile on your face, and just point out saying that photo. That's it. I mean, all you have to do is that, and that kind of becomes your most key essential part of your communication. That just a little bit of the sign language, you know it. That somebody else is a tourist and wants to take a photograph, and that kind of does the job.
That's interesting.
So these couple of things I always try to keep as my essentials. Like no matter how bad a day I've had in my life on that particular day of that job, wearing a smile on your face at all times helps. Definitely helps. Yeah.
I know what you mean. I come from an industry, hospitality industry, where you have no other choice but to keep smiling all the time, irrespective of what's going on in your personal life or internally, Yeah.
Of course.
So, where do you draw your inspiration from? Or who inspires you? What inspires you?
Well, again, there is nothing in particular that I would want to say inspires me because there is really nothing in particular that inspires me. There's just about anything and everything that inspires me. That is one of the biggest reasons why, even if you've got a chance to look at my website or whatever portfolio, or even my post for that matter, online, it's been an entire gamut of things put together. It's just in what you can say in a typical Mumbai language, it's like the bhelpuri of things that happens in your head on an everyday basis. So it's just a matter of time when you look around. Sometimes it's a beautiful sunset which draws a lot of thoughts in your mind, and that becomes a source of inspiration. Or sometimes it's just a beautiful girl that's just walking past by you, and it becomes like a source of inspiration. And it happened, and then and it's just about sometimes it's this moment of awareness that really draws me with a lot of inspiration all the time. I mean, interacting with my drivers. I mean, amazing kind of people, the different kind of breed of people that I've met all together. I mean, one of the most punctual people that I've ever met. Like most of my drivers, 99.99% of my drivers, they're like extremely punctual, no matter what call time of the day that I'm going to shoot for. Like even if it's like a spot which is 2 hours from my stay, and I have to go out and shoot before sunrise. I mean, I need to set up my camera before sunrise. So it's like a 3 a.m. call time for me, and the driver will be ready at 2:45 a.m. for me out of my bed. Yeah. So and the commitment levels are like serious commitment levels. No matter what, they'll sleep in their car if required, and then they'll make up the day for you. Or I mean, inspiration can come in from just about anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. Just like how inspiring stories can
keep you going, actually, I must say. That really will keep you going, is what I feel. I mean, if you stuck to one kind of thought process and one kind of liking, yes, of course, it helps you being evolved in that particular zone of your thoughts, work, whatever it is. But then for me, the other way has worked very much. Yeah.
Now, so before we finish this, before we wrap it up, one message for all the young Punjabi youngsters out there, who are probably, right now struggling to convince their folks at home that photography is, it's a viable profession. Maybe they should explore it. They should go take, because I know personally a lot of families who think that, uh, no, photography is not a serious profession. So I'm sure there are a lot of kids out there who are trying to convince their family members. So what message would you give to them, and how do you think they can, sort of make a career out of it?
Well, yes. Sad reality, but it's still out there. Even my own father wouldn't accept the fact that I'm a photographer after a few years of me practicing professionally.
Yeah.
It was only after a point when um, there was a job for which one of my clients was extremely generous enough to figure out a private jet to fly around to particular destinations and do the job. Just me, one assistant, and a pilot, and just all three of us just hopping around, taking pictures and doing shoots. And my father at that point in time was extremely astonished. And he said, "Oh, Putter, oh, wow, is this all people do for a photographer?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, Dad." And I had to give it back to him a little, in a funny way. And I said, "Yeah, especially if the photographer is good enough." So, once the kind of settlement happens, I think the family or your community or whoever is not really with you will be again back with you if they start to see the success. But initially, you have to find a calling.
Yeah.
It cannot at any point be a rat race or a peer pressure where they say, "Oh wow, photography has become such a cool profession. Let me also do it." That can never be your source of inspiration to start off. And you've got to figure out for yourself of who you are to begin with. I mean, ask those questions to yourself and be true. You don't need to answer it to anybody else. And then you pick up photography. Then perhaps what you do would be unique. I mean, otherwise, there's no point becoming a photographer, so to say. I mean, a lot of people would tell me, especially a lot of my seniors as well. A lot of people I've come across, they would say, "Oh, I want to become a fashion photographer." Yeah, sure. I mean, that's the most glamorous field to get into in photography. But then how many of us have the kind of bent? How many of us have the kind of skill set? I mean, you need to be honest with yourself when you pick up a camera and say that if I can do that kind of picture or not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, look at yourself, answer for yourself, and you will know it. A very simple example that I would want to portray here, I would not take any random example, but I will talk about myself in my own career. What happened to me was very early on in the final years of my education, I had to move out and I had to stay alone. I mean, it must be pretty okay in the Western cultures, of course, for all the Punjabis watching online. It must be pretty okay for everybody in the West to do that, but not okay for Indians as such, even now. I mean, it was a big step. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready for anything economically or mentally. And that really kept me longing for staying in a good house. I really wanted to go and go up into my own house and spend some peaceful time. And that simple daily routine would be like so special for me.
Right.
So that kind of feeling automatically reflected in my work. There was no curriculum for me to teach. Even now, there aren't many curriculums to teach you so-called interior photography for any houses or any different homes or forever, for all these things for that matter. But it so turned out to be that by the final year of my college, I was already on the cover of 2 different home interior magazines.
So architect Digest also, you worked with them too, right?
Sorry?
You worked with Architecture Digest too, right?
Yes, Architecture Digest as well. So it was just an absolute byproduct of me understanding my own self, talking to my own self. Like because I was longing for the house for so long, looking at somebody else's home would automatically bring out the good photos from me, because I would look at the beautiful view, look at the beautiful furniture, look at the home interiors, and that would make me feel like doing more photos. And that automatically turned out to be my portfolio for the longest time. I mean, then it eventually so happened that I stopped feeling homesick anymore. And I was a free bird where I was just always wanting to go out. and it turned out to be that travel photography is one of my things.
Wow.
So it was never really a part of your book of curriculum that you're going to say that oh, you can learn travel photography so that's a certain institute here, or interior photography over there. Yes, of course they'll teach you the mechanics of it, but the aesthetics has to happen from within. So I mean, the greats of the field, especially my field, have never really been formally trained. I mean, the greats of my field, whoever you want to follow, most of them back in the day just picked up the camera on their own and found their own inspirations.
Yeah.
And that's what is in my portfolio now. I mean, slowly I've started to understand what are the other fields, and slowly I've explored more of them as well. And so-called fashion also has happened. So
Yeah.
there you go. I mean, that's what I would want to say to anybody out there who wants to pick up a camera and say that I want to become a photographer. Sure, go out. But to become a so-called photographer, you want to become a fashion photographer, interior photographer, food photographer. You first need to become a photographer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, there has to be that calling. You have to ask the questions, like you said to yourself. Is this really for you? Yeah. I think only then you can convince another person, some way. Or maybe you don't even have to convince. You just do your work, and then automatically your work talks then.
Yeah. For me, it was the calling for one of my other episodes that happened to me was I was on a vacation with one of my very close friends in back in the day when I was just finishing my 12th standard in science. After that, I had like big long gap. I went out for a vacation to his place, and we went to Agra to see the Taj Mahal and Fatehpur Sikri. And back in the day, my friend's father, he got in like this one pocket camera, the 3 megapixels digital cameras. They were very trendy back in the day. Now 3 megapixels is just about nothing. But he got in that brand new camera, and then he gave it to me to take some of the family pictures wherever they were, And because I had that camera in my hand, I started toying around with it, and I looked around and I took some, pictures, and suddenly he said, "Oh, Beta, these pictures look very nice. How do you do these pictures?" I said, "I was just looking around and I really felt like taking these pictures." And that calling, you need to find that and say, yes, that's happening to me. You need to be aware of that. You can't just be in somebody else's pressure to say that, you should be doing this or that. I mean, the pressure should be coming from within.
It has to come from within. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pankaj, for taking out time and sharing your brilliant journey and giving us all these interesting insights. And I'm 100% sure that people who are going to watch this across our social media platforms will get inspired. And thank you again for always being so generous.
Thank you for having me. Very encouraging for this, for me to having myself here. And you're doing a great job, Rajveer. I'm sure you're going to connect with all the Punjabis and everybody out there, and let's party together, all of us. Yeah.
Absolutely. You take care, Pankaj. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much.